It's obvious that we do not have, let me make certain this is on. It's obvious that we do not have 2/3 present. So there is no business, agendized business per se, that can be completed. But in the health of the task force and the benefit of the health of the task force, there are definitely some matters that need to be addressed. So I am going to redistribute Oh, by the way, Warren indicated that he's out of town, but he has a draft version of the last minutes. He says they're pretty rough, so he didn't forward them as of yet. But since this is not a meeting, we're okay. So this is just a reminder of our norms that we discussed on our very first meeting on February 4th. And I want us to be reminded of those as we have this discussion this morning. So, there are some concerns that have come up. One specifically is related to the closure of the documents last night. Now, in order, and I'm going to do my best to explain some of the actions, and if you have a question, please, before we do that, let's just review the norms. Everyone agrees, honor what's being said, listen to what's being said, assume positive intentions, watch our airtime, watch each other's time, parent voice weighted accordingly, turn cell phones on vibrate, accept opinions with limited criticism. Remember, that students are the primary focus. Keep sidebar commentary to a minimum so we can hear what each has to say. Criticism about programs, not about people personally. Stay focused on the issues, not the person. Agenda-driven discussions, stay on topic. Raise your hand to speak and be acknowledged. There. So, Don.
I just wanted to talk to. I'm really glad that we who are here. The people that are here. The only other person that I wish was here was Louise. So and Warren, and Warren too, totally, because we're the parents. Okay, so I was the one that called Sharon that felt that it would be a good idea that we all get together, because I just wanted to remind everybody of our singleness of purpose, that we're all on the same team, that we all want the same thing, and share the frustration, with the mechanics of, I've been dealing with the school district, for a long time, okay? For 12 years, I've been dealing with the school district and really, really frustrated. And nobody has more, they may have as much, but nobody has more ammunition than me against the school district about what has occurred. We might be like, the Yankees and Red Sox, but button heads for first place. But I got a laundry list of lawsuits that never took place, that I could have, that everybody else, so I wanted to just remind everybody that's here that we're on the same team. We all want the same thing for our kids. I think that there has been some dissension amongst the ranks, but I think it's only because of lack of communication. I think that there's maybe some misunderstanding in the construction of every student, every school. When we came up with that plan to have 4 schools concentrated on, I think that maybe there was a misunderstanding that the other schools would not have any support whatsoever, which was never our intent, okay? Anything, unless it's like what's going on in Marshall, which has to be taken care of immediately, 1 aide for 20 special needs students is completely unacceptable, okay? Now that has to be dealt with right away. like my kids' 2 schools, it doesn't matter which 4 schools. It really doesn't matter. We want to change the 4 schools, that's fine. It doesn't matter to us what 4 schools. The theory is that we concentrate on the suggestions that we're giving the school board, which is going to be overwhelming as it is. Just concentrate on those 4 schools and continue all the services. And all, I'm not saying no other student gets services in other schools. Everybody in the other schools, like my kids still has his A, whoever. The programs that are for the special needs kids in all the other classes are business as usual. No one's being left behind. Everyone's going to be included. We just think that it would be easier for the school district to digest the theory of implementing our recommendations if we concentrate on 4 schools and then see, look, it's working. Now let's do the other 4 in the high school and the middle school. Now let's do, I'm not saying abandon the other schools. I'm saying keep everything business as usual, keep all the services in place in the other schools, but have this, what we're recommending implemented in the 4 schools and make sure it's being implemented. Now, I wouldn't, just real quick, let me just explain to you, Mary, what kind of response you're to expect from the school district, okay? Remember I showed you the picture of Harry? That's like a slam dunk. That was 6 weeks ago. I passed around a picture was taken of my son, which is a ludicrous thing without our permission. It was passed around, emailed to other people, and eventually got back to my wife. And we were like, what is going on here, right? We waited 5.5 weeks to get a response from that one issue, which is kind of a slam dunk, you would think, right? Somebody taking pictures of your kid at school without your permission and putting them on the internet? You think that's a slam dunk. 5.5 weeks, still no response to something that severe. And it wasn't until after about 15 voicemails, emails, faxes, that they finally responded with a letter. That's what we're up against. So that is the kind of response we're going to get from the recommendations. We're going to have to twist their arm to get to prove that they even acknowledge what we gave them exists.
Herman, Monica, Mary.
It's my turn. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Thanks for pushing for this meeting, Dawn, because I've been at the right at the threshold of parent voices and recommendations being brought forth as the chair of the CAC, right at the midnight hour of the self-review that only comes around every 4 years. And I remember clearly being down the hall here about 7 years ago, because I think we have a review coming up next year. And at that meeting, which ironically was held right at about the same time that the Lanterman Regional Center was having a board meeting, which I was on the board of, got held, and then our special ed director, the SELPA director, went on vacation right after that meeting. And it was the very next morning that everything was going up to Sacramento, meaning everything was leaving. And when I read the document that night, after I get back from my Lanterman board meeting, and I see all, because what I did is the big Post-it sheets that get, that we write on at the self-review meetings that, and I know I'm digressing, but I just want to say this because, there's mistrust. Parents have mistrust. So when we had these public meetings back then when I was the chair, the parents would be making many of the recommendations and concerns that we're bringing forth even now, right? So they get documented, right? And then they get sent up to Sacramento. Sacramento documents and then says, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And there has to be corrections. Well, many of the complaints and concerns were not even included in this document by one of the person in charge, Dr. I'll just say so-and-so, right? And Dr. So-and-so, that was, I think, her last job here at the school district was putting together that document and not including the voices. Because what I did is when the concerns were being written on the Post-its, and then as soon as they'd fill a sheet, they'd cover it up with another sheet, right? So then everybody in the room, so I went up and I removed the sheet. So it takes a little, I mean, you have to go against the grain a little bit. I went up and I said, why don't we put it 2 feet over and we started spreading the sheets out. And then I took pictures of all the sheets. And so when it came time to turn in the document, I saw everything that was missing. Well, who's going to go through that extent to see what came in, what didn't? And so anyways, I'm saying this because it took phone calls early in the morning to the person, Dr. So-and-so. And then it took, maybe some of what's even going on here, because I haven't read every single email, because a lot's been going on this last hour, right? But there's a lot of concern. There's a lot of altered, the blood pressure may be going up. There's concerns. Are we being heard? Are we not? Was this all set up already, ahead of time? So I think, so I completely understand. And I'm not claiming that that's happening. I'm not saying that that's happening now. But I'm saying that I understand the concern because it happened when I was there at the helm trying to make sure that the parent voices were being heard. And then when I saw that they weren't, I had to respond. And so then it took a call to the superintendent's office. And I said, I'm going to the newspaper, and I just made a call to Sacramento because nobody's returning my call. And there's things that are missing in this document. So then I got a call from the superintendent's office. How much time do you need? And I said, I need till noon because I didn't get to completely read this document. It didn't include everything, and I need this extra time. Well, they gave it to me. And then a few more emails went back and forth. And because, someone intentionally, Dr. So-and-so intentionally didn't include what needed to be included. So obviously she had to revise her resume and move on. But I think there's still people, and I'm not saying in this room, I'm not, but I think there's still people in this district that are blocking. There's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of smart, and so when I think we all agree that we all want inclusive schools, right. And I know when I've talked, I think everybody wants the same thing, and so I appreciate the right now the intention of this meeting to try to see that try to consolidate what we all have in common, so that when we go with a 200 and some page document to the board, that there's we're not all disconnected. We're all going in the same direction. Hopefully we're linked up to each other going down. I mean, some of us would like to go a little faster because, we've been around here a little longer. We've seen, much of the resistance, and we don't want another 12 years to go or 13 years to go by without us implementing, what needs to be in place. Policies and rules about photos. That's that needs to be decided. That should already be in place.
That's a no-brainer.
But see, we want when we push for these things that we're going to present to the board. I mean, the school district is in program improvement, and if you look at the PI document that they had to present, because when you're in program improvement, you have to tell the state. You got to give them the LEA plan, and I have the night that Dr. Abramson presented to the board on the plan for PI, I asked her for the doc. I said, "Can you send me the document?" Well, she handed me her presentation copy. If I had it electronically, I'd send it to everybody. But maybe we should all have that. And if you look at the dates on the plans on those, almost everything that I saw on there was 2012. 2000, as far as you can't tell the state, oh, we're going to be doing this down the road. New administration will be here in a few years. You got to say what you're doing now. And so I think that and hopefully many of the dates that we're bringing forth, and we'll tell that to the board, is that we want start forming this team to create that chime school. Start forming the team to hire all the aides that we need, or to form the partnerships with PCC or Cal State LA. We want it now. We don't want it down the road. They got to do it now. And if somebody doesn't want to do it now, then we want them to have the flexibility to replace people. You know, it should. If somebody doesn't want to do a job, then times change. We need to adapt to technology. Let's start using more technology. And if those people are they don't want to relearn things, well, great. Thank you for your service the last however many years. We really love you, and please bow out and give somebody else a chance that's willing to do it. That's what we want. And anyways, so thanks for calling for the meeting.
Agrees with everything you said.
Thanks for calling for the meeting.
Some of the things that I found were very frustrating. That I found me was that a lot of the techniques that were being brought forth to deal with a lot of the problems that we're having in the district were archaic. They weren't even used anymore in modern practice or believed anymore. I mean, neuroplasticity is already known to be existing, so anybody saying that, well, if you haven't learned how to speak by this age and you haven't learned DTT by this age and you haven't learned this, that you're not going to get it, it's been proven to not be true. So when people are writing goals and objectives saying that, well, these kids are this age, so they're going to be focusing on these issues, that is based on a false premise right off. And so what's frustrating to me is that, who is doing these in-services? I absolutely know who does the in-services. I know who is responsible for bringing in the in-services that are given to the staff.
Right.
And that person and these people that do that are very 30 years into the district. They have a standard way of thinking. They have not been capable of changing. And if they can't change their thinking, how are they going to change training people into thinking differently, to do things differently, so that we can shoot ahead? Because I think we can shoot ahead. The parents, we're all ahead in how we think on how to address issues and educate children. Because we stay on top of everything. We stay on top of the magazines. We stay on top of what's going on in the system and everything like that. But there are a lot of staff who are not, and they're not willing, and they really don't believe it. And so these people are the ones training the newer staff coming in, and then they're staying here about 3 years. I always call it a 3-year guideline, where you see people stay for about 3 years, and then they leave. They leave. They always leave because after 3 years, you can't take it anymore. Either you leave or you say, I'm going to have to just start thinking like they're going to start thinking. And I'm really afraid that if this happens again, then we're going to end up with the same situation we had before, which is so archaic. I mean, I go to lectures all over this country, and nobody is doing non-technological instruction in special education anymore. It's standard practice. But yet here, it's just standard to just take paper out and let's draw circles around this. And aren't you successful that you see this looks like this and circling it? And I mean, and that's success. And now that you've experienced success, you can go on to a next item and experience success. And I'm extremely concerned about it. I'm really, really concerned about it. And somebody came in our document and just started Xing out things that we had written and started writing in this archaic type of thinking and putting in that that's what we were going to be doing. And that happened, was it yesterday? About 3 days ago.
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we let Sharon explain what
Right.
we're addressing now?
Right, and that was just so frustrating for us because we all had a part that we were supposed to be doing, right? I'm good at research, so I'm getting the research for what everybody's supposed to be saying that they wanted to get research for what they believed in. Certain people were coming up with the particular type of concepts that we agreed on. We all had particular parts that we were doing. So when somebody comes in and just starts crossing out things and then writing in new things, it just completely threw our document into disarray, and we could never have finished it. And I thought it was a good document. I thought it was coming together as a very nice piece of document explaining how early you have to start intervening, how early you really can start communicating with kids of all different types of disabilities, be it ADHD, receptive, all kinds of things.
Do we need
And-
extra time?
Right, but
Do you think, how much time more do you need?
but now we need extra time because we have to go back in and go back and rewrite all of that over again. Everybody's got to be reassigned what they were supposed to do. We have to go back in, and my poor son is so exhausted from being up night after night with me, just because he's like one of those people who like, let me see what you've got, let me look at it and see if it's right, and looking over the document to see if he thinks this is right and this is wrong. And we've been up every night. I have been up for a week trying to do this. I don't have any skin in this game. I don't have any more children in the district. My kids are all gone. But my son and I always said that we knew what didn't work for him, and we wanted to give the opportunity for those things to happen for other people. And we don't see that happening this time. And we're really afraid that we're going to end up with the same thing again, where everybody's going to start thinking that you can start early. I mean, you can start with a few places and then start in a few other places. The only problem with that is the way that they train here is they use a certain people to train all the staff. And if their thinking is a certain way, then that's the way they're training everybody. And you know what I mean? And so what's going to happen is that's going to be the basic thinking. And even if you know what I mean, you start off getting the pre-K and the K and the first graders and the second graders right, all the other kids are going to be thinking, all the other teachers are going to be using the old form of thinking and training. And how do you fix that? How do you fix that? So I guess what I'm wondering is, how do we go about starting a new cultural way of thinking, of doing things, and at the same time implement it in the way that you're saying, slowly, you know what I mean? Not slowly, but grade by grade, or you know what I mean?
Slow,
yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily so, but you know what I mean? Starting from some grades and then moving forward.
It's
systematically.
We're talking about focusing on four.
Mary is up first.
Yeah, we're talking about focusing on 4 schools, and all the other schools, unless it's an emergency situation like Marshall, like I said, it's the same.
Okay.
It's the same. Nothing has changed. No services are taken away at all from
Okay,
anyone.
When you
emergency
talk about,
situation, I can talk of one emergency situation that the board directed Superintendent Gundry to take care of. And that emergency situation involved a child who was fully included being bullied out of a school.
Now, and that I knew of. I know of 4 parents who've come to me about that, about kids who've been beat up at regular ed schools who were included.
Right, and there's a lot of schools that the kids are fully included throughout the district, and there's no true program for inclusion. What will happen to those kids? We're in PI. Those students are fully included in a failing program. The PI will not be addressed when there's kids like that will have the same things as always.
They're scared to go to school. They don't want to go.
If it's an emergency situation, okay, like Marshall or like what you guys are talking about, it's got to be addressed immediately. We all agree with that. Nobody disagrees with that. Nobody's talking about not dealing with the bleed, at least trying to do fix the controlled bleeding that exists, and at least stay on top of what exists.
We don't
But-
know how many emergency situations there might be because,
I only know of the
spoke
ones
up.
that people tell me.
But I think that what the problem is that there's a misunderstanding that you guys think a lot of us are thinking one thing when we're not. That's not
Well-
what we're thinking. We're not thinking about excluding Marshall, not, addressing situations that need to be addressed. We're saying that's got to be done anyway. That's got to be done anyway. That's
But
a
if it's
slam
not,
dunk.
if
Let
it's
me
not
give
a
you-
plan, it's not going to be
Yeah,
done.
but let me give you an example.
But if we
Can I give-
concentrate on the 4 schools and crystallize what we're recommending in the 4 schools, then we can say to the school district, look, you got to keep on going with this. It's working.
Okay, but let me give you an example. You guys had a special at the CAC on bullying, right?
I wouldn't know.
I think the CAC had a special on bullying.
Yeah.
At that special, there was the principal of Marshall. Is that correct?
Yes.
Marshall,
Vice principal.
vice principal of Marshall, and several other school sites that I know for a fact and have in great detail because parents tell me things in great detail, and then ask me where do they think they should go. Where do they think they should? Where do they think they should go to get support? Like should they go to, different places to get support because their kids are terrified to go to school. And in particular at Marshall, I have a picture of a young black child with black marks all over his face, big bruises this large, okay, where he was beat up at school at lunchtime. No policeman, nobody was on campus. And he was beat up and told, die, die, die. And he was choked until he lost consciousness. And the nurse took him to the office and didn't call the mother until he regained consciousness. She then took, this is within the last 3 months. She then
Yes, I
took
heard
him
about it.
down to, the emergency room where he had a concussion. I saw him 3 months later. He still has black marks all over his face. And the student is still at the school.
That did it.
They did it. And this school and these principals are going to the CAC and talking about how they handle bullying. Now, I'm telling you, we have there's some serious problems here. And I know for a fact that I made sure that people knew who should know that this was going on. And this was a special education student who wouldn't know if he was picking on somebody or not picking on somebody. I mean, he wouldn't know anyway. You know what I mean? He's not that type of person. And yet here he is with these permanent scars on his face and being told that if he doesn't like it, he can stay in the principal's office and have lunch there since he's scared of this kid.
But Monica, nobody is saying that stuff shouldn't be addressed.
But I mean,
That's
this is
gotta-
what's going
that's
on
gotta be-
now.
I know, I understand. Look, I'm experiencing it with my own children on a daily basis. Nobody is saying that stuff shouldn't be addressed. I'm sorry, we
But
can't
these are
deal-
higher
I'm
levels.
sorry, we can't deal with that because we're only doing 4 schools. That's not the case.
Then
That's
how
not
are
the
we going to
case.
address that?
Well, we'll figure it out, but I'm just saying, nobody understands. I mean, we can figure it out. If we're figuring out all the other stuff, we can figure out this.
It's not
You
really
know what
Well,
I mean?
then that's my concern. My concern is that there needs to be some kind of cultural and shift that happens right away.
That goes without saying. I mean, I'm glad you said it, but that's got to happen. It's got to happen, and the only way to happen is for us to stay on top of it. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that nobody from the other subcommittees, especially from ours, thinks that things like that shouldn't be dealt with because we're
I don't
dealing
believe
with 4
she
schools.
does, and I don't
That's-
believe parents
I'm
do. I
saying
don't believe Mike
all
does.
the people on our subcommittee, every children,
Mm-hmm.
every school, thinks that situations like that need to be addressed as well as focusing on the 4. You know what I mean? It's not instead of. It's as well as.
But how do you?
Mary, did you get to complete what
No, no.
Mary, you didn't get to talk.
No, it's okay, but I wanted to make sure, I don't really understand how we started with 4 schools, and then we started with 4 different, there's 2 different schools now. I don't know who chose them, I don't know how it happened, what the criteria was to decide on the schools. You know how we feel.
So,
yeah, because
the ones that would be most successful.
actually,
We thought which ones would be the most successful, so we could, that would be.
But
the
how did you
easiest.
gauge that? How would you gauge it?
so let's,
Like-
so,
Well, we talked to principals and teachers.
no, for sure. So, I mean, let's just get on the same page. 'Cause I agree with what everybody's saying. There's a huge fundamental cultural problem. We're concerned because there's no plans, right? There's no systematic plan. We're saying things, but we don't necessarily have. You mentioned the fact that, the people that are currently here that know inclusion are going to be training the next breed, and look where that's gotten us. So all these issues scare me to death. And so at the end of the day, what I would hopefully like all of us to do is, when these task force recommendations come to the surface, I've always been pushing for a really level of specificity that takes the decision-making process in terms of who are they hiring to include, not to do training and all this other stuff, and puts it in the hands of the people who know the system best. So, just to start with that, to clarify a possible misconception, when we were talking within the Every Student, Every School subcommittee about picking certain schools and focusing on those schools, it wasn't going to be grade kindergarten this year, grade first, that next year, second grade. We're talking about a whole school adoption in 1 year, so K through 5 or whatever, however year it goes. So you're talking about changing an entire culture. Now, to your point, to your question about how are the schools chosen, we, as you recall, at that meeting a couple weeks ago at Total, we started just talking about schools. And we left that meeting with 4 or 5 schools listed, but we had agreed that not all the people who we thought, principals and other stuff, who would have understanding.
But it was already decided at that meeting what the schools were, which schools were already chosen.
No.
No.
If you were,
It was you wrote it into the document that very night.
Mary,
I
you put
remember.
any school in
Right.
there. Nobody's marrying
Okay.
those schools.
Okay, no, I understand,
No one's
but
married.
but it was changed. So now instead of, because I know Webster was always on there.
Right.
Okay, but then now there's 2 new schools, which are Cleveland and Longfellow. Both of those schools have 0 fully included students there right now. So if the principals that you interviewed, I didn't even know this was going on, but if you interviewed staff and principals, they might not know what a fully included student would be at their school. So how will you know that they're actually going to be successful?
so taking a step back, that Thursday meeting, you're right. We left that meeting saying these are schools.
And
but,
I did say I was not in agreement at that night.
Correct.
So-
But we did say before we left that we said we were putting these schools in for now, but we
Right.
were not deciding anything completely until we reconvened as a group and could talk about it more. So yes, we put schools in there as a placeholder, but we left saying this was not a final list. There was still discussion to be had. So this past Thursday, whenever the meeting was, we pulled up the list of all the schools, elementary, and we just went, okay, Altadena, Cleveland, Franklin, whatever, and we just went down one by one, and we just had a general discussion about what we thought would be best. To Don's point, it doesn't matter what the 4 schools are. I mean, I'm sure what we chose was not the best choices. All I'm saying, but knowing that we need to change a culture, knowing that we have limited resources, knowing that some of the stuff has been tried before and it's been pushed. You go back to the 1999 audit where they said the same thing and they went in and it didn't fail. They finished their task force meeting in May, and they did 5 days worth of training over the summer, and then they said, okay, you schools, you're included this year. And so you didn't give people the time for the roots to grow. And so that's the underlying thinking behind this. I was at Altadena. My family was at Altadena when I was there. I was with the principal in August when the decision was made that we're going to be inclusion come September. And he was thrilled because, great, look at all the money that we're getting. Not to look at how the services that we can provide, but look at all the extra money we can get. We were gone within 3 months because we realized it was a total, they were saying yes, but they were not, but they were really saying no. And so you can't. Everybody's experienced horror stories. We all have our thing. My horror story from Altadena was that You can't force something down in a month's time. You can't force something down without getting staff trained fully and the whole system working together. And so that's my fear, is not wanting to replicate that.
But so
at
now
other
Altadena,
schools.
you believe after all these years, Altadena will be working better than when it did the last time it failed?
I personally, I have no faith in Altadena Elementary, but they are an inclusion school right now. I don't know what's going on there.
I can tell you that there's inclusion schools on the list that are not even addressed. There's, I've got, let's see, Field. Let's see, Sierra Madre, Blair. There's schools that are considered inclusive schools, but I don't see that Cleveland or Longfellow has even an inclusion student. They have SDCs,
Well, then they wouldn't be good choices.
but that's what's slotted on the plan.
That can change. That's not,
Well, how would you
nothing's
feel-
been given to the school board yet.
I think that it shouldn't be a matter of choice. I mean, to me,
The documents are
my
locked.
son, who went to UCLA, who was a regular ed student, whatever that means, a neurotypical student, whatever that means too. He wasn't necessarily considered, I guess, neurotypical at the school that he was in. Matter of fact, I would say he was considered not neurotypical at the school he was in, which was John Muir at the time, and then Pasadena High School at the time, because our district tends to have very smart, bright kids, and then kids who are really suffering in the middle, and then kids who are really just floundering at the bottom. And then there's nothing being done to bridge those gaps in between those three different big problems. And mainly what I see is there is people who really don't believe in the kids. They honestly don't believe that like someone like my son Justin could know neurophysics, or that this one here who's half falling asleep in here, who's pissed that he had to come, or that my other one could come from John Muir and go to UCLA. And at the same time, you had to put in yourself a lot of extra effort, I'm sure all you parents did, to make sure your kids got what they needed in order to be successful in the school district. So what I see is a bigger problem that is based on who is training who. Mm-hmm. And until you get rid of I think initially they thought we'll cut off the head of the dragon, right? Of who is doing most of the telling everyone what to train, and then that'll fix it. But it won't fix it if the dragon has trained everyone else to think the same way. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going on here in this district. So when I think of becoming inclusion, I think of you have to start from the very beginning and trying to understand students, that students are people, that they have different ways of learning, that it doesn't mean that they're retarded, that some kids learn differently than others.
And if they are, that's fine.
And even if they are,
true, right?
That's not a big deal, and that you find ways to bridge that gap communication-wise, so that you can communicate with them and that they can learn in the general ed curriculum. And then I personally don't believe in bringing in a bunch of different curriculums. I believe that you can use one type of curriculum and bring in different ways to present it. And that saves a lot of money by bringing in different ways to present that curriculum, by bringing in technology, which our school seems to be at the ED school up at, for the emotionally disturbed school. They all have the projectors and the whiteboards and everything like that up there using them. They're not using them for pin boards to put on posters. And they are using those things and those techniques, and those kids are doing better than even the regular ed kids, but yet they're not allowed out of the
Segregated.
out
Right.
of the segregated placement.
Nobody
So-
disagrees with you.
But what are we going
Nobody
to do?
on this board disagrees with you. Nobody in this, this task force.
So how do you
agrees with
address it? Do you
everything that
address
you're
it from the
saying.
bottom, or do you address it from the school site?
Can I say something?
No.
So,
She has to talk somewhere.
Carol,
she said.
did you want to say?
She needs a mic.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm laying myself in the line here because you know this means retribution.
Yes,
Okay,
I do.
I'm staff, and obviously I'm here because as a staff person, I strongly believe that every child can learn, and should be a part of the regular curriculum. However, I'm not the one who makes the decisions. The decisions, frankly, are forced on me.
That's right.
And when I look at the ideal as compared with the real, there is no way that by this fall we are going to convince the powers that be at the site that things are going to be changed. And I'm going to say that right out. Because if you see the situation in my school, and I can tell you it's the same at most of the other schools, it is not going to change between now and September. I would like to think it could be, but it is not going to be because it is so ingrained, and I am told what I have to do. I can give you a situation just yesterday, which is a very easy one. You all have your horror stories. I have 20 horror stories. I have 20 kids in my class. I pain for each of them. Just yesterday, I was called by one of the former administrators, who now is back in a classroom situation, but still sees himself as an administrator because that's the way he's seen, who asked me for the accommodations of one of my students. I couldn't figure out why. It's because in his new situation, he is going to take one of my kids who's on the swim team. This is fabulous. One of my kids is on the varsity swim team in 9th grade. And this was hard to do. I hate to say it, but it was hard to do. He's going to go in at 7 o'clock, supposedly, take the CMA, and then go to the finals for swimming after that. I said, what? How much stress is that to put on an autistic child? Oh, well, if that's not going to work, just give me the accommodations. His mom can drive him to the meet afterwards. How is that going to help the situation, I asked. Just give me the accommodations. That's all you need to do. This has been decided.
Right.
Well, I got on the phone with Mom, and Mom and I both agreed that that wasn't going to happen. And she now has to take up the fight, because I can't. This is what I face every single day, and that's a very small example. Now, if that is what happens every single day, and Monica, you talked about a physical beating, which is never getting in the newspapers, it's never being put out there, I see it daily.
Yeah. I know.
We cannot, I'm sorry, between now and September, get this changed, particularly at the middle and high school. I would love to say we could, but we can't. What we've come up with is possibly a way of checking in those situations and having a team go out with a kind of a, I called it a WASC, kind of a clipboard, and go into those schools and find out what really is going on, because we don't really know what's going on. Some of us do.
My kids let us know what's going
But
on.
we need to put that in front of the board. Because you talked about smart boards. My smart board was put up over my whiteboard. So I can't use either of them now because we don't have a projector up.
You brought up the priority sweeps last week. I don't know if you saw. but
Yeah,
we did bring
and I very much appreciate that because the board was told every classroom has a smart board. Well, yeah, it does, but it's not a working one.
Right, right.
And when I had this board, because, I invite the board people into my room and they come. And when they see this, they see the reality. But it's not out there. And so I'm being told not to say anything, okay? And it's only with this task force that I've been allowed to do that. And you know what's going to happen as a result?
It
I'm not going to
shouldn't.
say anything, okay?
Shouldn't.
Now, I want to tell you, I am 100% behind what you want to do because I strongly believe it. I was told to get myself out of a job when I started as a special educator, and that's my goal. But it can't happen fast or it won't happen well. So don't lose your prize by going after it before it can be done in this district. Because when I came and saw what it was like here, I determined I was going to stay for the kids and the parents. But we can't do it wrong or it's not going to happen. And we've got to have oversight to make sure it does, okay? Because I am so strongly committed to this that some of us that are really here and laying ourselves on the line really want this to happen. And every day we face the recrimination because we try.
Carol, you speaking right now is
We know how hard that
10
is.
times more than anything that I could say.
Me too.
Because we all know the power of a parent when they're speaking for their child, but when a teacher, when a teacher speaks, there's no one else that can speak the power of a teacher because you're there in the battle on the front line every day, and I know that that teachers can't speak. I know that there's a code of silence, and it's actually it's to me it's very sad because I have teachers in my family, and my kids keep telling me I should be a teacher because I'm always I'm teaching. I'm always it's like in our blood. We're constantly we want to teach. But I don't know if I could be a teacher. I would be one of those teachers that the rest of the teachers would probably, get together and try to get me to go start another school or something.
Right.
But, really, when we're here, we're talking around the table with Monica, we're all speaking the same. We're just looking at it from different perspectives. And there's the resistance, like you said, we wouldn't be able to change it even if we wanted a few months down the road because, and I know we could talk about this more offline, but we know what it is. There's a contract, right? And I looked at it. Actually, I had put little Post-its on the contract from a few years back, and I dug it up and I was looking at it, and I think on the chapter on inclusion, I want to say it was 6.19.
Yeah.
So Article 619, right? The teachers right now, the wording is such that it's so slippery. Everybody can get out of everything.
It's easy.
Right, everybody could get out of it. There's nothing that can really. There's no teeth. Nobody's bound. You can't unless you're Monica Watts or the Oshevskis or any of these strong parents that have come up and try to battle on their own or have these big have attorneys and behind them. Then they're able to get their needs met. But it's sad when all these other kids they don't have things in place. And so we know that there needs to be some changes. Like, that the district, right now it says the district provide training. Well, it's almost like saying, a teacher going up and saying, well, I stood in front of the class and I read it out to everybody. I don't know why they're not learning. So did they, if that's the definition of teaching, to just speak out and just like throw it out there, well, you can just sit home and watch a video, There has to be two-way engagement. You have to know where the kids are at. You got to motivate them. There's a whole bunch of, work that a great teacher does. And I could imagine, I know you're a great teacher. You wouldn't be here. And the great teachers, Sue Simmons, Susan Go, who's been my son's teacher, the passion that they have to teach. I also know the teacher prior to you, Ms. Go, was a new teacher, But she was very passionate. Was she credentialed? No, she was on her way to getting credentialed. When it was time to remove someone because she was low on the seniority list, who went? Was she more, equipped than some of the people that were higher in the seniority? Absolutely, because of her, we came back from a charter school setting because she was our summer school teacher, and she said, that seat's open for Alessandro in September. Do you want to take it? Absolutely, because of you. We're coming back. And so then she's no longer in the district. Seniority, it's a last in, first out situation. So there's contractual issues that need to be resolved that, clearly, you can't talk about in public because, see, everything gets done behind closed doors. And then we're here sort of wrestling around and, having to hire attorneys and come to meetings. And when there are some significant changes that need to happen, and we're talking about maybe undoing this contract, maybe it's started from scratch. Maybe it's when we propose for a new, a Chime-like school. We have schools in our community that are closing. I don't want to sell. I don't want our schools to sell. We have board members that want to resolve the budget issue by selling our campuses. These campuses have been here for decades. So because a few people want to look good and, balance the budget on the selling of a school that's been in our community for decades, no. That should happen over our dead bodies. The change needs to happen so those schools get filled. We have 65 some schools. We have 60 plus schools in this community that are private. There's no need. We don't have a lack of people wanting to be educated. We know that there's that there are people in place to meet the needs in this community. If we are coming short and we're losing kids, then we gotta refigure things. We need maybe we need the board to have the what would I can think of some Spanish words to say, but I don't want to offend anyone. But the guts to the let's say, how about chutzpah? I think everybody knows. Okay, thank you. Okay, see, it takes a chutzpah. See, chutzpah. Damn. See, I should have known that. Chutzpah. Chutzpah. See, even saying that, you know that they want, they have, they're going to do it, and we need the chutzpah, to say, let's start a couple other schools. Let's have a thin contract where we can put everybody that we need to in place, and not whoever. We close this school, and now, those teachers are higher seniority, so we got to jam them into this school, and it's all happening behind closed doors, and we don't know if those are the best fits. We have a personnel commission that, it's sad because personnel commissions they're not needed anymore. They were needed when they were created back in the 60s because we didn't have the unions in place. It was illegal for us to have these labor unions, but we had the personnel commission. Now we have layers upon layers upon layers of bureaucracy, and we just need to step back and say we're so used to it now because of the discrimination that this community had, that we think some of this needs to be in place, but now we're beyond it, and people are getting impacted, and we need to step back. We need leadership that will say, maybe with the employees, and say, look, let's undo the personnel commission. I looked at the salaries of some of it's just layers of bureaucracy, and we're not able to put people in place that are best qualified to meet not only our kids, but the needs of the rest of the district. So I appreciate, if anybody comes after you, Carol, I'm going to bat. I'm going to bat for you, and I'm going to bat for, listen, I'll make it public now that I will go to bat for any teacher. If you see abuse, if you see anything that's not happening to somebody and you're afraid, call me, and I'll just tell you. Here, I'll give you my number. It's 626-840-9842.
Or Child Protective Services.
Yeah, call me because there are, It's sad. This last week, you guys saw the video. I saw the video of the kid, the dad, the single dad that had to wire his son. He had to wire his son because his son started behaving. He had autism. He started behaving erratically, and there were things that were out of line for the dad. And I think it's in New Jersey. This happened, and I'm trying to get a hold of the dad right now. Actually. He wired his son, and in those 6 hours that he heard that night, it just turned his world upside down. And I know that probably everybody in this room, at least all the parents, and any special ed parents that are out there, if you're out there listening to us, if you wired your son or your child, your daughter, and it came back, and you heard some of what is said and done. Because there's some people in the system. This is a sad reality. There's people that are not really committed like you, Carol, and like you, Susan. There are people that are, they're there because I don't know. They're taking up space. They just happen to land, and they're maybe waiting for retirement, whatever it is. And maybe they're having a bad year. Maybe they got divorced. And they shouldn't be with the kids. We trust the system when we drop off our kids. If there's no trust, then that's when we go outside and we get an attorney, we want an outside one-on-one to be with our child because we know that don't say that, cover that, don't do that. And so that needs to change. And so how is it going to change? We're on the outside. We know that, and I'm not saying this with everyone, but we know that if we're touring some classrooms in the school district, well, it's planned, and of course, everybody's going to behave appropriately when they have a police officer right behind them, or you look over, you're gonna drive the speed limit. But how are you driving when there's not a police officer next to you? Are you putting on your seatbelt? We want people to be doing the right thing at all times, and it's our kids are vulnerable. They're the most vulnerable. The special ed kids. Abuse, it's statistics that I've seen on organizations that do abuse, it's like in 90% of the people that have a disability get abused in their lifetime. That's too high. And we have to be assured that the people, so who better than somebody in the system, right? A teacher, an aide, somebody who's there to be able to report without retribution. That's how we're going to make the system better. That's how we're going to allow the best people to be in place. And so, anyways, I appreciate you coming out and saying and speaking up, Carol. I would hope that, because I think that the people in place are the ones that have the best chance of changing the system, of saying, look, let's change the agreement. It says that it doesn't force me to do the training that I know I need. Right now the contract doesn't allow us to train teachers based on the kids that we have coming up the ranks. And autism now is 1 in every 55 boys. So either we change, or there's going to be, I don't know. We're going to have a society that there's going to be fear of what is autism. All these kids in these private schools, they're not around kids with special needs, so they're fearful. The blessing in our community is that the kids that are in our public schools, and when you go to Chime and these schools that do the inclusive, maybe at Webster, at Roosevelt, when the kids see the kids and they accept them and respect them and know that you're nonverbal, but I know you're intelligent. You have cerebral palsy and you might be, but it doesn't mean you can't read. You have something to say. Your value. And when we as a community value people that are different, we accept them, and then we're able to grow up with them in our community, and it makes our community stronger.
Tony?
There's so many things to say. I think that everybody here has taken a commitment towards change, and I think that that's a good thing. We all know that there's a systemic problem here. Whether we voice it or not, we recognize it. There's conflict in the schools. There's conflict in our room, in this room. It exists. I think that we acknowledge that. I certainly acknowledge that. I acknowledge my mistrust. And I recognize that the staff that work with our children have to deal with some of the same issues of discrimination and bigotry and hatred that have been leveled at our families by people that don't recognize in themselves these traits. No one wants to say or admit to a word as horrible sounding as bigotry, but it exists. And there is a system of bigotry that has been allowed to go on for a long time. We just saw that there is an action taking place in San Francisco now, very similar to what it had occurred here, in which a large number of children of color have been identified as serious emotional disability, as opposed to what I believe it probably is, which is misunderstanding, challenging children that don't need to be challenged in confrontational ways, and a failure to recognize autism, and that 1 in 55 males that we're discussing have already been identified as something else, and at some point in time, we need to, as advocates and activists for our children, we need to take the reins back from the people that are making these decisions about our children, and we need to say enough is enough. There is a disproportionate number of children that are identified as having
emotional disability,
as being called ED, and I believe now and have believed for years that these children have autism, and that they are being set off by people who knowingly or unknowingly create situations that set negative action in motion. When we discuss staff development or professional development, I've taken a look at the contract here with the UTP. These things are B-Monday professional development activities, IEPs, parent conferences, SSTs, 504 plans, and parent communication. However, if you look at NCLB and what is called professional development does not involve parents. All of the activities that I have just read involve parents. There is a flaw in the language of the contract that needs to be addressed, and I have no problem at all pointing this out. I have sent an email to people, and said, take a look at this. There has to be a discussion at the negotiation level to determine whether these things called professional development are actually job requirements. And if these are indeed job requirements, then the teachers have been, through the fault of both sides of this equation, not given the professional development for years that they should have received, because it's been misnamed professional development when in fact it's something completely different. My child has shared with me some of the events that he sees at school, so has my daughter, and I thought, they can't be as significant as what I'm hearing. At some point in time, we all have to step in, and we all need to stop hiding these things, and we need to acknowledge them, and we need to address them. There is conflict in our schools. There is conflict between children. There are children being set up for failure, for behavioral disasters and meltdowns that are perhaps set in motion by a system that says my way or the highway, that a system that says you will be punished if you do not follow these directions. You do it this way, or you leave, and if you don't leave, then a situation will arise in which that will be forced. I have seen this with my youngest child. I know that this exists. I have to say I'm happy that we didn't have 2/3 here for putting through the statement of intent. We have to take a look at this, at how the statement of intent was designed and developed, and it needs to be done the right way. It wasn't, and I think that we need to acknowledge that. And I think that that if we try to split hairs about this, what's going to happen is that we will have a division. And the fact is that it wasn't done the way that it needed to be done. There needed to be more voices involved in it. It was never agendized. Today's vote would have denied access to a lot of people. I'm glad it didn't happen today. I want to share that. I'm glad that the meeting notes are here, but that we again can't resolve to accept them because again, too many people for this meeting were not able to come. And I know that this was set up as what the intention of the meeting is. At least I recognize that now. But we need to try to stay within the parameters and the protocols as closely as we possibly can, because in violating the protocols, it opens up the very real possibility that this is all thrown out. That these recommendations have to be started over. I don't think that having meetings that everyone can't attend and can't access brings about positive change, and in fact, it creates more schism than it's worth. To find the things that I found last night in reading the documents was unsettling and offensive. There were things that were done that I would never ever agree to. I would never. For you. Yeah, decisions were made that I didn't even have the opportunity to say I don't agree. That's the power of the First Amendment, the right not so much to free speech, but the right to say I don't agree, because once you lose that right, then decisions are being made for you.
And that's not a collaboration.
Right, and it certainly isn't collaboration. We need to, I agree with Don, we need to stay focused, and we need to stay calm, But I also need for everyone here to understand that if someone tells me that the emperor is dressed in to the nines, I'm going to say the emperor doesn't have clothes if the emperor doesn't have clothes, and I hope everyone understands that, and that's how I'm wired, and I can't be any other way. I tried, but I want to at least express that when I hear that there is a classroom of 20 children that have learning challenges and there is one assistant assigned to that room, that there's more to the negotiations that have to happen between the unit members and the district, but also between the unit members and the unit members, so that these kinds of situations aren't allowed to happen, because I have never heard of any kind of positive classroom.
There's an extra aid. I'm just thinking that.
a situation where two individuals can run a classroom of 20 while trying to meet that 49% of integration or mainstreaming or inclusion, and get them out into the general program while providing, a quality support system to them. It's just not possible.
Is advocating that, right? Nobody
which?
here is agreeing that that's acceptable,
No,
right? You understand that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But I also want to make sure that I went on the record to say that it's more than just a district to teacher thing. It's a teacher to teacher thing. And at some point in time, our teachers, all of our teachers, everywhere, and our administrators, and our families need to understand that we will not get very far if we do not work together, and to push off our responsibilities onto other people is not working in the spirit of community. It's no secret where I stand on inclusion. It's no secret where I stand on the special day class. At the same time, I recognize that there are children who need a quiet place to work, and they should have that.
Sensory room.
I recognize that there are needs that every child has, not just our children, but that every child has, and we have to do something as members of a team, as human beings, to acknowledge and support each other. It's not fair to push this off onto any one staff member. It's not fair to push it off on any one group of staff members. It's no more acceptable to me to say, these are children that I provide services for, and those children are yours. That's no more acceptable to me than these children can be educated in this place, and these children can be educated in this place. I believe that any child who walks through the door of our schools should have the opportunity to be taught in the same classroom as every other child, if that's the parent's desire. And I think that if the school gets behind that kind of belief, that we don't allow anyone to fall behind. Isn't that what that means, NCLB? Isn't that really what that means, that we don't let a child go? We don't quit on our kids. We don't say this one's mentally deficient or has an emotional disturbance, so they need to go over there. We support these kids. We take the time to, if we need mental health, we bring it into the school. But we can't leave this for somebody else to do. Okay, I'm going to give this up because I could do this for a long, long time.
There were two more hands, Monica, then Mike.
I wanted to say that I spent 2 days up at the emotionally disturbed program, Focus Point, and the other two programs that are up there. And I had kids crying to me, how can I get out of here? What do I have to do to get out of here? What's wrong with me? Why I can't leave? And I think that that's really wrong. That students should think that something that in the way they learn or the way they were raised, or even a kindergartner or first grader should have to say something like that to me and then just want like a hug, somebody to hug them. And that's something that this school should take a really big look at. That anything, you give them anything and they think they're grateful, a lollipop or a sticker. A lot of them can't stay still in their seats. They're clearly ADHD and have other issues. And wish to God and say so, that they could, because then they could go back where, their friends are. And they say it in a really low voice because they don't want no one to hear them because they think they're going to get in trouble for saying it. And my son gave a lot of his things to the school that helped him cope with those kind of feelings when he used to have them in in education here in Pasadena. And I thought, here we are now, 12 years later, and we have an entire school of them. And I'm not saying that there aren't kids that aren't emotionally disturbed or anything like that, but I really honestly believe that something has to be done to seriously take a look at the way these very young kids communicate very early on and whether or not it's effective to get their points across, and that if they're not acting out behaviorally because it's not effective, and that's in giving the appearance of emotional disturbance and causing them to get a label that's sticking with them the rest of their life, and then they end up begging to get out of it. But I don't do these things because of my own children. My own children are gone. I do these things because I truly believe that a lot of kids are being left behind. And it's really not necessary. And we really can do things to improve it. And we can work together and do it if we really wanted to. And everybody could. But there are some people that really are not interested and have some biases that are going to make it really hard for the rest of us who maybe want to change things. And if anybody has any power in this district, they should use that power to make sure that the people that believe in them and listen to them that may be higher up in the echelon understand that this is going on here, and that Spangler versus Pasadena City Schools. Pasadena is one of the few schools that had forced desegregation that wasn't in the South. Didn't happen by accident. It didn't happen by accident at all. And people keep trying things a little different in a little better way and think then it's going to fix it, when really you just need to fix it. And I really believe we're capable of fixing it, and I really hope people make an effort to do so. Thank you.
We aren't going to quit.
Mike.
It's hard to follow that. Thank you. I was hoping to start by talking about trust. And as parents, we all experience mistrust with the system, the district, not necessarily with certain people, but the district as a whole and the system. And it's easy for us, myself included, to take that mistrust and apply it elsewhere. So Tony and Mary, thanks for bringing, Tony, when you just spoke recently, thanks for bringing up a couple issues that you brought up. So I'd like to explain them, and hopefully we can start to build that trust back with this group. The statement of inclusion, I agree. It was not developed in the most effective and efficient manner. My hope was that we would have taken the same approach with the statement of inclusion, with the statement of intent, that we did with the statement of inclusion, or philosophy of inclusion, with putting together 3%, whatever, people to really look at it seriously and do it. This task force started off by talking about the philosophy of inclusion at the beginning. We started that, Monica, Jim Albanese, myself were part of that committee or whatever. And then when we brought it back to the table, the entire task force had a chance to voice opinions. And there were three common recurring themes that came back from that feedback. One was, Herman, you were talking about wanting to look at CHIME and seeing if there's things that we could take from CHIME and bring that in. Tony, you were right on in saying that, that third quality, I forget what term we were using, but it didn't get to the respect and the dignity and everything else.
Trust.
Right, trust.
Integrity.
And Louise and Judy were very adamant about making sure that this was rooted in law, that we don't paint too pretty of a picture to lose the fact that this is rooted in law, and some students are going to need more supportive services, and make sure that we, as Herman said at one of our meetings, that we spread the net wide enough so that no one falls through. So from that feedback, the committee, the Inclusion Definition Philosophy group, went back and we made changes. We looked at CHIME, their intent, and we added some wording that was from there. Tony, we tried to grasp the dignity, trust, respect issues in a way that didn't get into a recitation of 15 things, but try to do it in a very succinct way. But we never really touched upon the Louise and Judy comment of bringing it back to law and protecting and spreading the net. So as every student, every school committee was going forward, it was really important to us, not that it wasn't important to anybody else, but we really wanted to make sure that we captured that continuum of service, that we captured the fact we spread the net as far as possible. And in looking at that, starting with setting the foundation of how we bring change in a broken system with a broken culture, and it has to start with the Board of Education. And if the Board of Education isn't on board, we can go home right now, because no one's ever going to do this without the force of the board. So the thought was, let's get the board to buy in and take easy steps incrementally, quickly, so that they can start setting the policy and putting it in place. And so first step one was the inclusion philosophy, getting them to at least agree upon that. Then the next step would be to go a little step further and recognize the whole, board policy. And that's where Tony and Mary, you had the idea about adding the NEA statement behind it so that, we...
No, I didn't.
Tony, you had the idea about putting the NEA comments behind it so that we can show that there is agreement here if we work forward in a collaborative way. Unfortunately, there was a time issue. And so the inclusion philosophy statement wasn't come back to until April 9th, whatever, that Saturday meeting. And here we are, we're all feeling under the gun to get all these documents done in place quickly. And so the idea of there wasn't time to put together a subcommittee, whatever, to go back and do the framing statement. So absolutely right, it was not handled the right way. It was not an intentional, let's subvert the system. What was presented that following Wednesday was let's get something on the table in front of the task force at once, since we can't take the time to do it as an individual group and come back, and let's just put it out there and let's all work on it together. Of course, that leads to we have one final wrap-up meeting to cover 18 different things. We weren't able to cover everything that we needed to do with that. That's the statement of intent. With regard to the meeting, the email that I had sent around suggesting that the subcommittee leads meet last night, that again was born out of the fact of trying to know that we're under the gun and we're all talking about the same thing but from different perspectives, and trying to put together a cohesive plan to the Board of Education. As had been discussed before, it wasn't to try to subvert voices or prevent people from coming, knowing that we had a finite time to do it. Is it realistic to get 25 people in a room to do it? Or, as has been developed in this protocol, of having a subcommittee lead be a spokesperson or a representation of each subcommittee, would it be easier to get 6 people, ideally, or 5 people in a room so that we can give it some effort and energy? That was the motivation behind that. And so that's why the email came out. My suggestion, if we had time, before we turn in a document that the subcommittee leads, knowing the intent of the subcommittees, could look and make sure that we were all aligned as properly as possible. The meeting never took place. I mean, once Monica said that she was unable to come on Monday, Tuesday, whenever you said you were unable to come, that negated the opportunity to have a meeting because it wouldn't have been representative. So right then and there was never a question of whether are we going to go forward or not. So there was never a meeting last night. There was never a discussion. There were never any changes made that was trying to alienate or silence. Right, no. Monica couldn't come. Louise couldn't come because she was sick. Carol Higa went out of town. Jim Albanese was parenting by himself. So there was nobody to meet. And I had been working all through the week from 7:30 in the morning till 8:30 at night, and then some nights didn't get home. Wednesday and Thursday didn't come till 11. So I came home last night when I got home at 8:15 and thought, oh crap, I've got all these things that need to be put into the document from the meetings that we had that I had in.
And Mike, I'm not going to speak long, but I just to say that I think that was part of the concern,
right,
because the deadline was midnight,
right.
And so to pull away from the computer, I think the collaboration committee was so overwhelmed.
Right.
It has the most, of the goals. I think we ended up with the most. I think we had 22 or 23. Anyways, so I think I just so you know, because I was submitting. Actually, I didn't want to go into the document and type in, because I didn't want to. So I would send it. To them and have them place it. Things that I wanted, and I think that I know that was a little bit of the concern was.
Right.
Pulling away and then having to meet, but I appreciate you wanting to tie, some of the knots together, and or just make sure we're all, because even when we present to the board that night, DLAC is going to be presenting. It's going to be a long meeting. There's going to be a lot, and so for us to have the attention of the board, we have to go in a we have to be effective in what we present.
Absolutely.
And we want to make sure we hit our notes as well as we can.
And then the last point that Tony you had mentioned was going in last night and seeing things in the Every Student Every School subcommittee document that you had not seen before,
Or heard.
right? And those were things.
Never discussed. Yeah.
No, those were things that came out of the Thursday meeting, the subcommittee meeting that everybody was invited to. You and Tony said you weren't able to be
could
there.
not make it.
Correct. So it was not. When we left that first meeting a couple weeks ago on Thursday, everything was put in from that meeting. Nothing was added to the document again until after Thursday when we met again. So the fact that I agree with you, you were unaware of some of the things that were discussed, so that's why it was a surprise, but it was not.
But there were no minutes. Nothing was provided to anybody to
Right.
know what was happening at that meeting on Thursday that we couldn't make, and we said we couldn't
We
make.
we would never agree to
Reconciliation
handing
team and-
Sure.
to anything to the CAC to
No, it's
be
not the CAC.
No,
There's
no.
to be an intermediary. That's certainly not for us. And
supposed to go straight to the board. There was no question about
right,
that.
to hand it to the district to say, well, you know what, you find the issues where there's discrepancy, and you make the decision. Like we would never agree to something like that. It's I mean, not to the board, but to the district. We would never agree to something like that.
We would never
the
waste so much
dynamic
time.
what the dynamic here and what's driving even right now what's going on here is that there's an active and strong interest in coming to some kind of agreements and resolutions on what to hand to the district. I would never want to hand them two opposing viewpoints and tell them, Dr. Jason or anybody else, and a team of teachers and paraprofessionals and CAC members, here, resolve this for us. We need to resolve that stuff.
Right.
Like that stuff needs to be done by us. We can certainly. We certainly are all on the same page. We all think that there needs to be some kind of overhaul here. How we get there, we're not necessarily seeing it the same way. My feeling is like the longer we spread this out and the longer we put this off, the harder it is to put this. It's going to be to put this through. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you have to be the hammer. Sometimes you have to be the anvil, right?
Yeah, but Tony, that's unrealistic to give
Is
them
it? But is it?
the amount of
The only thing that's unrealistic.
Person at a time.
The only thing that's unrealistic is to me
Their
is the
NPI.
belief that I can't. I'm hearing again and again and again. I can't. They can't. We can't. Actually, I believe that if people believe that it can be done, it can be done. And the minute that we go into this saying, well, we can have another 5-year plan.
Or 12 years.
Yeah, but
Or
nobody's
12
saying.
year.
Wait a second. Nobody's saying that. All I'm saying is that with the amount of information that the subcommittees have compiled, okay,
Right.
and I got to go because I got
I hear ya.
2 kids and I got no wife helping me. So, it's unrealistic to give them the information that we're going to be submitting, expecting them, based on what I told you before about the picture and their response. Okay,
how long things
they're not going to do anything. They're going to take it that night and say thank you, and they're going to review it. Okay, and then we're going to have to come back and we're going to have to talk to them about what they like and what they don't like, and they're going to have to vote on it, right? But it's unrealistic to expect. It's like expectations or disappointments in the waiting. It's unrealistic to give them that much documentation in anticipation of them being able to do it all right away. I don't know that they're going to respond at all to anything we give them, never mind all of it at once. You know what I mean? So I'm not really expecting the board to do anything with all the work, this great work that's been done. Not one thing is going to be done.
Can't be.
Okay, so I'm just saying, you know, we
They can't
all
say
agree
that.
on the same
They can only
thing.
ask us
We
questions.
all agree on the same thing. It's just that it is, you have to agree that it's unrealistic that that amount of that many recommendations could be, you know, started within a couple of months. It's
But there is a sense of
absolute-
urgency that
Of course.
was
Yes,
imparted to everybody.
nobody disagrees with the sense of urgency,
Absolutely.
and nobody disagrees with the fact that it's got to be done. I'm just saying that it's unrealistic to expect that amount of work to be, executed in such a short amount of time. I'm not expecting anything. Nothing, not one thing of our recommendations am I expecting them to come back positively with. Not one. But to hand them 250-page document after it's been consolidated and say we need it done by September is completely unrealistic. We're setting ourselves up for failure. That was the reasoning behind going with 4 schools and not taking any services away from anybody else.
What about if we don't go by 4 schools, but we go by 4 concepts?
I don't understand. What does that mean? I mean,
Well, I guess
if
what
I'm the school board, how do you
okay,
do that?
Okay, well, if I'm
How
on
do you
the
do
school
that?
board, I would go by 4 concepts. I would go by 1, dealing with the cultural and the cultural damage that's just completely disruptive and
Anything
and
anything that's happened in the
obstructive to-
past,
right.
we
Well, no,
acknowledge
that's
has
not
occurred.
past. That's not past. That's
Yeah,
going
no,
on right now.
it exists now. Yeah, but they're saying,
Right.
what if they? I don't want to give
So we
them.
deal
I don't want to
with
give
that.
them any leverage to say, oh, conceptually this is great. We don't know how to do it.
Well, no, but I'm just saying we deal with that initially first, and then we go about dealing with the second issue, which is trying to maybe deal with the younger kids and teaching them how to communicate effectively using multimodal methods, and then going on to the other grades and letting them progress on to their next mode, a method of communication, but always using the general education curriculum.
Well, that's
Instead of
completely
finding some
contrary to completely contrary to what I mean. People already voiced opinions that they didn't
That-
like that.
See,
You know what I
who?
mean?
Who
So,
voiced that?
I just heard some people say that we thought that's.
They thought we needed a bunch of different curriculums?
No, I'm saying I thought that I heard other people say that they thought that that it was first grade, second grade, kindergarten, or whatever.
No, we just understood 4 select schools based on, I don't know, some arbitrary type of reason to choose them. That's what it's. There's going to be a lot of people that are questioning, but why Webster? If Webster's already an inclusion school,
So then pick
they're
another
doing
one.
okay.
Pick
So
another one.
find
It
one that's
doesn't
really
matter.
critical.
We don't
It's not
believe in
about
picking
the
a school.
schools.
We believe in picking. I guess I don't see it as a school problem. I see it
Systemic.
as
It's
a
a
cultural
system,
problem.
yes.
I don't see it
As a training problem and a cultural problem.
Right.
Everyone agrees.
Okay, well,
I agree.
then you would fix that first, and then start fixing particular, and it means sites and programs and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think that
I mean,
Yes,
that's a
me.
complete
I'm just saying
other.
me.
That's a complete other option. I don't know
huge-
whether we have even the time to,
I don't know.
like
What do you think?
yes,
file a program like that to submit, but don't expect them to react regardless.
right.
My point of calling the meeting today was to show that there was no dissension amongst the ranks so that we could go to them as a well-oiled machine and we could say, look, we all at least agree on one thing, that this needs to be done and it needs to be done right away. And we do all agree on that.
Yes, we do.
We just go, okay, here, now everybody's included. I guarantee you they think.
I know that this has been challenging, and one of the biggest things is when you're on the outside looking in, you see all the multiple places where miscommunication took place, and then the miscommunication becomes someone's truth.
Right.
And it still started as a miscommunication.
Yeah.
So where we had, there was not the internal communication within the every school, every group subcommittee, that actually really bled out to impact the entire subcommittee. You need to understand that. And during our meeting where we stayed late and we just kind of hashed out the inclusion philosophy, I've always said that I'm here to take whatever is said in the room, pull it together for you so that it's easier the next time we get together. There's been no issue with that up until this point. Now, when we stray away from process, that's where we start to have problems. So with that, there was already some miscommunication going on within the every student, every school subcommittee. And then I did my usual thing of compiling the thoughts and ideas that were in the room, and I sent them to the subcommittee lead. Well, that's why we had subcommittee leads, so I didn't have to send it to everybody. Some oversight, it didn't get sent out, so from that day forward, I had been believing that it had been shared. I didn't know that it hadn't been shared. So I come in the room, and it's like, okay, I'm doing my thing because that was the process. So you still have an opportunity. One of the reasons that I had set that April 25th date was so that we could have this check-in conversation a few days earlier. That was the whole goal for the 25th date. It wasn't to press anybody. It was to give us an opportunity to check in with one another a little sooner.
I know it may not have seemed that way, but that's how it felt.
Because
we were so far behind.
And understand, you had all these miscommunications being built. You have one communication that you're working so hard, but it's built on something that wasn't actually true.
And also
accurate.
lack of documentation that we requested to actually formulate the goals and stuff.
Sure. So, but the whole point of it is you can't collapse in on each other. And I'm going to tell you, you can't collapse on me. You can't. Because I'm here because a friend called me and said, I want to make this work. Well, he did ask me that too. But the point is, I'm here because I just care about kids, period. I didn't have the skill to be a teacher. My mother was an amazing teacher. I didn't inherit that. What I did do was get the ability to know how to get people from point A to point K and make certain that along the way we're doing the things that we need to do. But whenever we stray from process, we get something like this. So I have had people comment and ask me, Sharon, oh my God, how do you feel about this? I've been here before because we're human and people stray from process. We get in a hurry, we don't do something we're supposed to do. We didn't quite mean for it to come out that way. We say something we really didn't mean to say. I don't take it personal. You're here because you're incredibly passionate about something. Let's get on board, align yourselves with the smart objective that you need to develop to correct this. And I'm going to say this one last thing. Because of my desire for everyone to be able to track the process, instead of using the Google option to just take access away from everyone, last night I went line by line to give everyone view access on all 7 documents. That's 43 email accounts that I had to give access to per document. So, well, I tried to address that via email because until I received Tony's email, I certainly didn't know that. Absolutely. And one of the things, I don't know, an explanation was given to me for how it happened. As a facilitator, I can't get in someone's head. I really can't. But what I can do is try to keep you focused and keep you on track so that you're not so severely distracted
But
by it.
this is a person that distributes information
And training.
and training throughout.
I
And you
hear
can
you.
see how it frustrates.
Oh,
and it
I
has to
hear you.
frustrate on both sides of this,
I hear
discussion.
you. And mind you, it has actually occurred on other documents as well.
Yeah.
Not the same person, but just not really being familiar, not knowing. There was one document that was beautiful, and then all of a sudden it was like one box was like this long. I'm scrolling, trying, and I actually edited it before anyone saw it because I just needed to bring the page back up so that this one box wasn't 3 pages long. You know, these things happen, but you can't collapse in on each other. You can't implode. You are so close to being able to accomplish and be a voice for a stakeholder group that needs you to be a voice. Are you going to be in agreement 100%? Absolutely not. Don't even expect it.
Agreement 100%
But-
with anyone on anything, so I know better.
No, I've always known you're not going to be in 100% agreement.
I know better.
As
I know
Tony
better.
said, you're all in agreement on where you want to get on the finish line.
I don't want to get to the
But
finish line.
we're all bringing our diversity. We're all bringing our different paths for how we got. We're all bringing our baggage. We're all bringing our preferences. That's all the diversity is the thing that makes us all different. We're bringing all that, and that drives the way we believe we should get there. But it's being a team, it's compromising, it's understanding, okay, that way works just as well. That's how you get to the end. But again, I wanted us to have this conversation days earlier because I look at your documents every day, and there's still some of them that still need quite a bit of editing. I mean, I've literally got the next 3 days set aside for formats, you know, changing colors and making certain it's the same font and
But there's like missing timelines, I think. For us, we didn't have missing like information for like resources, so there's going to be missing a lot of
well,
information.
and I understand. That's why my recommendation was if you don't have it, make that a SMART objective, that this document must be reviewed before fill in the blank.
Well, you know, it's really a drag to have to, you know, to call someone up, and it's in their job specs to do certain things and say, hey, you know what, we need this, can you get it to us? And then you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, or they offer it, and you wait and you wait. Then you have to go over their head and ask somebody else, and
File
and
a
then
public
they
records
get it done
request.
for you. And it's just like, really?
Trust me,
I
I
mean,
understand.
really?
I shared with you in an email. Tony apologized for not responding to something, and I had to let him know.
It's okay to not
I'm in the middle of
answer a lot of the things that I say.
415 FICMAT recommendations right now. 415. We are a subcommittee of approximately 6 people, and we have to go through that process that I wanted to do starting on Wednesday with kind of reconciling and looking for what's in alignment and what's not. That's actually kind of going to happen now over the next 2 days. That's why I wanted that date to be bumped up a little sooner. So
How's that going to be done, though?
me sending you a lot of questions and asking, just clarifying. I'm not changing anything, but if there's a way to clarify it,
Will you still have it up that while you're working
can
on it?
simply
Will we still be able to
reopen
look
it.
at it?
I can reopen
That'll
it.
certainly be helpful too as you're working on it.
Now, what I'm saying is that I can just reopen it. But see, again, my plan, the date of the 25th, was so that we could touch bases, find out where we were, let the leads start having those conversations with the other subcommittee leads, and get us having kind of this conversation just a little earlier. But again, we can reopen it. Your documents are really looking good. They really, really look great. Do not, absolutely do not feel any sense of failure or incompleteness. I reopen the documents, but we still have to agree on a date that I can close them because I still got to consolidate them all. And then I can start working on the other subcommittee documents while every student, every school, and by the way, you changed the name. You got to go back to the old name. Oh. Well,
No, I changed it.
that was actually what confused me last night at 12:30 when I got to that one. I was like, is this in
Well,
the
I didn't know it was going to
subcommittee
get
that
locked.
So I actually had to
I actually
read.
tried to unchange it because I thought
And then I
that
saw
I had made my.
handwriting.
Well, I had to.
No, I moved
What I had
it.
to do, Tony, was
I
print,
changed the font.
before closing that one. I had to, because I was pretty tired. I had to print them and sit them side by side to make certain they were the same. Because I wouldn't. I literally at 12:30 in the morning I was confused. So. Here's the thing. In order to be fair to everyone, and there are some subcommittees that have not opened their documents since the 25th, 26th. Yeah. So in order to be fair to everyone,
Yeah.
I'll reopen them all.
They haven't been touched since the first day.
Oh, no, those are gone. Those were just blank templates.
Yeah, but I mean, I know which document you're referring to, and then another one that was changed just recently. But yes, because there was one meeting that was held, and I don't even think that document was ever presented.
Well, anyway, so Louise had the flu this week. It was challenging for her.
It's a nasty flu, too.
I can reopen them, but we all have to agree on what that closing date is going to be. Because, again, in order for me to go through and give you the opportunity to have that viewing, ladies and gentlemen, this was a one account at a time activity for me. My husband was furious because I was working in bed. That meant he couldn't go to bed. So I need you to, we've got to agree on what that closing date is going to be. So can we go with April 30th? That would be what? What's today? Monday night?
Are we going to meet after that too?
No. Yeah, but that I can reopen the documents until April 30th. That way I can start working on some of the other group's documents and give me a little bit of a heads up, and you all can continue to enter your information. And you all need to have that conversation about the inclusion concept.
Can that document be put up as a Google Doc?
Which?
The inclusion document?
Oh, absolutely.
Why don't we do that?
In fact, okay.
Just so that I can, when you guys
I'm-
are making changes,
I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but take this and pass it down. We're not voting, obviously. But I want you all to understand what my role is in supporting you. Paragraphs 5, 6, and 7 are all out of the discussion that we had in this room. We talked about diversity of needs, that, in fact, Tony specifically referenced students with mental health problems. We talked about culture and adaptations that were needed on the schools through language, the whole bit. And then there was also the agreement that we had to create some kind of statement.
I just want to
Oh,
make
I'm
sure that
sorry.
you had it.
Here's Susan. No, get him. I got Tony.
Okay, thank you.
We wanted to make certain, or the subcommittee wanted to make certain that it was stated in such a way that the board, it was as though it was coming from the board, so that when they read it and approved it, that was just it. There was, obviously there may be some changes, but we made it, the subcommittee made it easier. The task force made it easier. So those items 5, 6, and 7 are directly from. No,
I
I'm
would say
focusing
this
on
at the
5, 6,
beginning,
and 7.
Everything. Special education
Items 5,
is a service of
specifically,
place,
we're focusing on 5, 6, and 7.
Special, and then-
Those
thank you.
were, need your attention. Those were the conversations in this room. I took notes and I've turned them into 3 paragraphs. That's all I did, and passed it on to the subcommittee lead. So anyone who thinks that, I've joined a subcommittee, first of all, don't have that kind of time. Secondly, that's not my place. I've been facilitating long enough to know what my place is, and that's not it. My role is, though, to make it easier for you. If there's something, and this certainly would not be captured in the notes. So I captured it by taking notes as everyone talked, turned it into 3 paragraphs, off it went. So understand, I'm just doing my job. I will post, there's actually 2 revisions that are out there. I will post the revision that had the latest input. So that puts us at version 4. So you'll see a document in Google Docs called Inclusion Philosophy version 4. All right? Do not implode this close to the end. And this is only the end of this piece. This is an incredibly long road you're on. Okay? The last thing would be, and this is not an area that I was participating in, but the question has been asked of me, and that is who is doing the presentation. That's never a conversation that I have participated in. So,
I thought that when you said that someone else
someone, but I don't know who that someone is. I believe, in my mind, as parents, you all might want to have conversation with each other and figure out who you want to have represent the plan or the recommendations at the meeting. I don't know how much time you have even at this point. That's something I have to find out.
And it just doesn't necessarily have to be one person. I mean, theoretically, if we decide that we break it up, whatever, I'm just saying, that way.
Because then we're very
Well, understand that there aren't parents on, I don't know if there's a parent on professional development or.
Yeah, but I mean, they can do their section.
Okay, this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you for each person to write up something brief about those subcommittees, about the document that you're turning in, because obviously you're not going to be able to walk through the entire thing. We know that, but if each person can develop a summary on that particular section.
We started with a summary, kind of. I mean, we started with an introduction.
No, I saw it. It was great, and Louise actually adopted the same thing.
We thought that was, I don't know, somebody put that in on, they had formatted something, and I don't know if it was done intentionally or on accident, but I just went, oh, cool. This is, somebody did it. Somebody, probably Mary Jo.
There are 6 subcommittees. I would recommend that you all contact other parents and get, some assignments for who would be willing to present, and then, work with each other to just create a brief paragraph. You can do this after the 30th, because the session isn't until the 8th.
Now, my question is, it will be agendized, but we don't know how much time we have then?
I don't know at this point.
So who
I'm
would
certain.
tell us? Would it be?
No.
No, that's for public comments.
Yeah, this is for presentation. I can find out on Monday. I can find out on Monday and then send it out. But in the meantime, you guys start talking amongst your parents, because, and this is just my opinion. I always tell you I'm stepping outside of my facilitator role. In my opinion, because this is a task force that really came into being because of parental efforts, it makes a statement that parents are presenting the sections. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to do it, but it's just a thought. So we are in agreement. April 30th. If you finish before midnight, let me know so I don't have to stay up.
Okay.
let me know.
Okay.
Two, start thinking about, and again, this is a conversation that can take place after the 30th, about the summary. I'll find out about the amount of time for the presentation on the 8th. All righty? Any other questions, comments? Susan?
I want to thank everybody for their hard work. I don't say much, but I do read the documents.
Thank you, Susan.
I just want to thank everybody for their hard work in making this happen. And I thank Mr. Barraro for his comments. I don't think you guys know it, but I am also a special ed parent, and I'm a parent first before a teacher. And my passion has been here for that reason. And my child was in PUSD, and I walked in your shoes. So I know what you are dealing with. And thank you very much again.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, it goes back for me to the very first meeting, and I know that Tony and Mary weren't here, but the first thing we did was the exercise on the uncommon, common things. You don't know what someone else's experiences are until really you spend time alongside them, work with them, listen to them. And there are people who have shared things in this room that they've taken huge risk, professionally, some personally. The sacrifice of time for everyone has been immense. So
I think that's part of what we're all running on too, which is fatigue.
yeah, I think so.
Really?
Well, let me tell you, this week I've been doing, I am not supposed to drink coffee. Literally, my doctor has told me do not drink coffee. The last week and a half has been like a caffeine fest. At this point, I am the proud owner of Cankles because I am not supposed to be drinking coffee, but it's been keeping me awake for some 14-hour days. So
You want to come work in Pasadena?
you're scaring me, Herman. I think I'll stick where I am. But anyways, thank you. I want you to know I absolutely appreciate what you're doing. And if there's ever a question, a concern, bring it to me. Let me know. Because I've been doing this for a very long time, and one of the things that makes it work is when you don't spend the time on blaming, but try to figure out what happened. Where did the break take place? Where was the break in process?
For us, I think when we felt like we were not getting the information that we needed to figure out the resources that we would need. When we felt like we were not getting the resources that we needed to figure out how to get things done properly, that we were just getting extremely, extremely frustrated, our group, because we just felt like, well, if we just knew how much they were spending on this or how much they were doing on this, then we could spend that money on this and move this money over here and things like that. And it just was just becoming really, really frustrating.
And how much training has already been done? You know, we don't even know, and it's starting to come out now that there's some of the things that we're talking about, there has been training.
Almost $2 million last month.
And what I
stuff.
was going to say is
Unbelievable.
it's not the best case scenario, but and again, this is from my experience, from literally what I'm doing, spending my time with every day, is I am creating statements that indicate this needs to be done before, something else occurs. It's not the best. It really is not the best. You want to do more. You hope that you can do more, but I am finding that in doing that, one, it's documented that this needs to take place, that this particular review needs to take place. And what that means is also you've got to get together a body of people and do this for that accountability piece. And when you when you do that, that accountability piece requires documentation. So that's the point that I'm making. It's not the best solution. I know, because you want to do more. But in the absence of, that might be, the second best that you can do. All right?
So you're keeping the documents open till,
You can open them until April 30th, midnight,
which is tomorrow, or when's April 30th?
Monday night.
Monday night.
Yeah.
And then,
So you can go home and take a nap.
and then when do you turn them into the whomever?
The 2nd. This is still the same date, May 2nd.
So the 30th is Monday. I'm sorry, and then 2 days later. Okay.
Yeah, that gives me, I'm actually giving myself like, I'm not going to work. So that I can wrap it up for you. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Not what?
You heard me.
I'm not going to drink coffee anymore. Is what
And
I
I,
heard.
well, like I said, if you see my ankles, they look like, God, it's awful. I know better, and yet I did it anyway because I fell prey to the Mac Cafe commercial. All righty, everybody.
Could say no to coffee.
Go home, take a nap.
Oh no!
And
Now
then-
the
Well, no, because I won't be going straight home, so I can't reopen them immediately. You okay? So I promise you they'll be open by like 5 o'clock this afternoon.
my boys they have